comes up to speak. Brother Farrakhan is separated from his wife. He's up in the balcony in the old temple. She's sitting in the audience. So he's standing there, and after hearing the other brothers who came on to introduce the messenger, and then the messenger comes on to speak, and you know the way that the messenger handles the English language. He doesn't speak like a Harvard graduate who studies the King's English and pronounces the syllables just so. So when he starts to speak, the minister says, Brother Farrakhan is standing there, and he says, wow, that's their leader? He doesn't even talk that good. And just as he's thinking this in his mind, the messenger seems to turn and say, brother, don't mind how I say it, listen to what I say. Then you take it and put it in that fine language that you know and deliver it to the people. And then Brother Farrakhan said, then he backed, he said, wow, he's reading my mind. All praise is due to Allah. So, but after the messenger spoke, Brother Farrakhan stood up, okay? So now he comes into the nation, and he goes through the ranks like any other soldier. He didn't know that they were looking at him. It's like in the institutions in the devil's world, especially at like Radcliffe, Dartmouth, Harvard, when there's little students that come out of these special schools, when they go, they're watched by the instructors. That's why the CIA recruits on those campuses. They recruit on those campuses, and it's not just somebody go to the campus and it's like in the institutions in the devil's world, especially at like Radcliffe, Dartmouth, Harvard, when there's little students that come out of these special schools, when they go, they're watched by the instructors. That's why the CIA recruits on those campuses. They recruit on those campuses, and it's not just somebody go to the campus and look. They've watched this student since he was in elementary school, high school. And they watched him come up, and when he gets into college, they have the professors to kind of cater to him, to bring him to have coffee with him, to talk to him, because he's being groomed. They know that he has a good ability, and they are grooming and watching him for a job. And then when they feel that the time is right, then they approach him and they bring him into one of those $60,000 or $70,000 jobs a year, analyzing something for the government of America down there at the Pentagon or for the CIA. So Brother Farrakhan had no idea that the messenger and Malcolm watched him as he came in, and they were looking at him because they needed a strong minister in Boston, number one, and they wanted to see the potential, but he came right in and he soldiered. And what I learned from Brother Farrakhan, he said that he wasn't looking for nothing. See, don't ever come looking for no position. Come look to help. You know, you came into Islam not because of a position. See, did you come for a position? Then when the position is gone, you're gone. Or if you get a position and you love the position and the power position and something happens and you out of position, then if the position is what you're here for, then when the position is gone, you're gone. History has shown us that the average man that holds some position of status, if he loses it, he's got to be a good soldier to stand and walk with the rest of the men. That really tests the fiber of your ability to soldier, and that's why that verse is in the Holy Quran. Do men think that they would be left alone on saying that we believe and not be tried? See, that's a trial. God may drop you down in a bottomless pit, and you suffering and catching hell. And then you see what you do when you're under that pressure, whether you go left or right, or whether you hold fast and your faith is strengthened through the trial, or whether the trial weakens you and you get off the path. Look, so Brother Farrakhan goes to New York, his wife and his family, and he begins to soldier. Then he goes up to Boston as a captain. And look at the wisdom of the messenger. Malcolm goes to the messenger, says, dear apostle, we have this Brother Lewis, and we want to send him to Boston as the minister because they were having trouble with Ulysses, a lawyer, Ulysses, I think, and Ulysses was having problems. Look, we all got problems, but you cannot let your personal problems make you withdraw from your Islam. And I'm saying this to Muslims and those who are coming up to Islam. We all got problems. When you hit the door back there, when you walked in, you got a problem if you black in America. But you got to know how to deal with the problem and keep that ingredient in your life that will allow you to carry the weight of the problem, and that's your Islam. You don't move. You're like a coal now in a fire that's burning bright. And for you to jump out of the fire, you know how quick that coal loses its glow? That's the same thing. Man, the word in Arabic for man is insan. And it means, the root of that word means a social being, meaning that man is a social being, that he interacts with his brother, and his strength is with his interaction with his brother and his sister. So Brother Farrakhan was sent to Boston. Malcolm went to the messenger, said that he wanted him for the minister. Listen at the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Messenger said no. Make him the captain or lesser post before you make him minister. You have to try a man under authority before you give him authority. I mean, that's the wisdom of the messenger, and I heard Brother Farrakhan repeat it many times. Meaning that there may be something in store for you, but let's see how you act under authority before you become the authority. Because how you act under authority will tell us something about how you will be when you are the authority yourself. And if you are rebellious under authority and contentious and vying and keeping things going and always got some madness going, then when you get into the position of authority, you will do the same kind of thing. You'll always have something going. You'll be pitting people against others. You'll be like a one we'll get to in 1975, that he'll come in and he'll tell, I'll do this for you. And then he'll do that for you, and you go back and execute. And then he said, I don't know why he's doing that, but always keeping something going. Remember that point, because I'm going to get back to it. So Brother Farrakhan went to Boston, and he soldiered as a captain under Brother Ulysses, and eventually Brother Ulysses stopped showing up, and so Brother Captain Lewis had to take the reins to teach. He ended up teaching, and eventually he became the minister of the Boston Temple. He worked in Boston for 9 long years. During this time, from 1957 right through 1962, the messenger was moving around the country. And the highlight of the messenger's movement around the country was 1959 in Washington, D.C., when over 10,000 black people came out to him, and we got national attention through that. And then Mike Wallace, the same devil that's on 60 Minutes now, came up to produce a show called The Hate that Hate produced, and he solicited the aid of a Negro imp named Louis Lomax, who has since died in an auto accident. Louis Lomax talked to Malcolm. Malcolm spoke to the messenger. The messenger told Malcolm, I think you should stay away from him. The messenger was like this. He would tell you how he felt about it. And if you understood him being a divine man, the messenger's suggestion should be an order to you. So Malcolm was insisting that this would help us. This would give us visibility, and people would get to know us. He was right in that, but there was another trap under that Malcolm could not see then, but eventually manifested itself by 1964. So in 1959, the messenger spoke in Washington. In 1960, Newsweek and Time magazine wanted to know who was this black man. Reader's Digest wrote an article in the early 60s, the most powerful black man in America. During this time, 1959, Malcolm produced the first Mr. Muhammad Speaks, May of 1959 in New York City. And it was a paper that we were trying to bring out monthly, but the paper was talking about the Nation of Islam. We had an inroad with young black people and college students at that time because the civil rights struggle was about to break on the national scene. And those who can remember, it was in January of 1959, those who are old enough, that one of the first demonstrations in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and it was on the front pages of all papers across the country. So right then, an integrationist movement started, and the integrationist movement was not the brainchild of black theoreticians who thought of a way of breaking down the barriers of America, but the integrationist movement came out of the minds of white folks who saw that there was a movement towards separation being spearheaded by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that was moving on the grassroots level in every black community across America. And because of the power of the message of Islam and the fact that black people were coming into harmony with a God that they believed firmly was on their side. It was changing the complexity of the black community as far as control by white folks if it ever got entrenched in every black community in America. So they had to come up with the opposite end. And what you're looking at is the positive and the negative. The positive side was really separation. The negative was the integration. Okay? So the messenger, this was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He was the preacher of this, so the white man had to create something over here, so they created a Martin Luther King. Regardless of how you love King, this is where it's at. King's popularity, King's ability, his being known throughout the country did not come because King was a great organizer and had organized mass movement and had worked with grassroots people. His visibility came through the white press that established him as a black integrationist leader throughout black America. He could speak well, he had a good mind, and I believe that the man was sincere in his heart, but his popularity came through the white press to actually oppose the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and what he was teaching black people. White folks tried to discredit the movement. They said that Malcolm X was an ex-convict who was the top lieutenant of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And this is supposed to discredit the movement with intellectual black folks, but yet and still it had an appeal with grassroots because the average brother been in and out of jail. And he knew what jail life was. And if he saw that there was a teaching that was powerful enough to straighten his life out, then he wanted to hear what that was about. The black woman loved what she saw because for the first time she saw something that could straighten up this black man and make him a real man for the first time since she's known him, since she's been in America. So therefore it represented a change in the black community, and it was John Kennedy who came into office in 1960 who saw the potential threat of the power of the Nation of Islam, or what they call, they hate to identify, so they called us black nationalist separatist movements in America, which is really the Nation of Islam in itself. So look at it now. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was moving across the country. Mike Wallace produces the hate that hate produced. And he shows that we are a hate group, and hate is a word that turns Negroes off, because we've been the victims of the white man's hate for so long that we didn't want no association with it. So therefore, when they said a hate group, we would back up. I don't want to be no part of a hate group. Then they went to the next step, and they called us a separatist, a segregationist movement. They didn't use the word separation because the word separation is that two equals desire. That's a desire. Segregation is a forced condition, usually forced on an inferior by a superior. Brothers who have studied merchandising, if you got a strong product, when I used to be a salesman for a nationally known company, the word that they use for their product in the supermarkets, they say we segregate our products from the other ones, okay? I used to work for Nabisco. They dominate the cookie market on the East Coast. And Nabisco, when I worked for them, the word that they used was segregate our products. And why did Nabisco say that? Because Nabisco was the tops in the market. They dominated the market. So therefore, they didn't want to be integrated with the inferior cookies. They wanted to be kept segregated by themselves because they were in a position to demand that they be segregated from the rest. And when I learned that, then I understood what was taking place in America as far as separation and segregation. We were not a segregationist movement. We are not a segregationist movement because we say we want to be independent from white folks. Yes, you can call us a separationist movement if you want to, because we want to separate ourselves from his world and his lifestyle and all of the filth that he has heaped on us and our people and go for ourselves. So therefore, they use this term to turn our people off. Now remember, this is the early 60s, 1960s. Some of you were just being born then. The messengers out there on the track working. A picture is painted of us as a religious cult in America, a group of black ex-convict and thugs and women who were ex-prostitutes and street people. And we say, yes, that's exactly what we were, but what are we today? And by the power of the message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we were able to bring our lives into order. So in the early 50s, the white man now is looking for a way to break the back of the movement. And what happened was that with the negative force over here and the positive force over here, if you want to make an electric motor, what you do is you take a piece of metal and you wrap coil around it like that, right? Right. And you hook it up on it, and then there's a shaft that runs through the middle. And when you plug them in, it creates a movement. And that's how you have electric motors. And in your workshops, in school, in your little science class, they would do it with a nail. They give you a nail, and you wrap a little coil or put something over the nail, and you wrap coil around it, and then you plug it into the end, put some juice through it, and the nail in the middle would move. Okay? So that the same thing happened in America. The messenger teaching separation from the white man. Martin Luther King teaching integration. Okay? So he was a negative, we were a positive. It created a movement with the masses of black people in America. Now they were on the move. They didn't know where they were going, but they were moving. They were laying and sitting and crawling and praying and they were demonstrating and protesting and picking and throwing bricks and burning down cities. They was getting guns. They was hollering black power, Ungawa, and everything. I mean, they were wearing afro bushes and dashikis and bones through their nose. But there was a movement going on in America. Poetry was being read and cats was talking about a little bit of everything. They went back and got the drums and went to beating the drum. Took the sisters off, told them don't wear no tops. You can go like you were in Africa. I mean, it was happening in America. It was just a movement going on because these two brothers were preaching. Look. So when white America saw the movement, they said, we got to control it. They felt that they had to control it, and if they didn't get control, something would happen. So the first thing they sought was a way to break the back of the nation of Islam. So meanwhile, Brother Lewis X and Malcolm X, Lewis is under Malcolm, learning from him. Malcolm is a gifted speaker. He can magnetize an audience, capture the imagination of a people with the wisdom of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Brother Farrakhan, who studied English, went to Latin high school, I think it was, in Boston, and he learned English well, and he had a gift for English and could speak well because he was a singer and had a good baritone voice. And believe me, brothers and sisters, you can go to these colleges and have some of the heaviest professors on the campus, and they can put you to sleep because they don't have the ability. I mean, you sit in a classroom with them, and they'll go to rapping off all of this wisdom they have, and you be just sitting there. You can't even hold all this wisdom going. You can't keep your eyes open. Now, I know some of you in there nodding right now. Look, but Brother Farrakhan had the ability to speak the wisdom of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but it was like a song, something that kept you alive, okay? And he's studying now under Malcolm. The devil now is working to break the back of the nation. He's given airtime to all other movements and making them appear to be the right thing. That's why the subject we got, there's a way that seemeth right unto a man, but the ends thereof are the ways of death. It's exactly what happened to Martin Luther King. See, they were appealing to the beauty of the heart of the black people. You shouldn't hate anybody, love everybody. God and Jesus, they teach love. You should love everybody. You should desire to integrate into America, and we'll become one with you. See, that's appealing to the emotional side of you because you don't understand this thing. So meanwhile, they know that they have to try to break the back of the nation of Islam. The messenger's becoming a strong figure in the country. As a matter of fact, I had a doctor that teaches at Western Illinois in Macomb. He told me, Dr. Madhavana, thank you, brother. Yes, he told me of how the Panther Party started on the West Coast. The brother was right there when Huey and the brothers used to get together. They used to take the Muhammad Speaks newspaper, their first newspaper. They took the Muhammad Speaks, turned it over on the back, looked at the messenger's program and write what the Panthers want, what the party wants, what the party believes. Then they ran their things down right from the back of the Muhammad Speaks newspaper. What that's saying is that the messenger represented the impetus, the driving force, the thing that pushed all of these brothers into a so-called black struggle. Imamu and Ron Karinga and all of the brothers that stood up, they were touched by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Eldridge Cleaver was a Muslim when he was in prison, if you read it in Soul on Ice. Rap Brown heard Brother Farrakhan's record, A White Man's Heaven is a Black Man's Hell, and that's what woke him up. Stokely Carmichael told us last week when he came to visit Brother Farrakhan that he sat on the first row when Malcolm came to Howard University, and that's what woke him up to become the black man that he is to this very day. So showing you that at the root of all of the nationalist movements in the country was the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. All praise is due to Allah. So now the enemy is trying to break the back of the Nation of Islam. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad has emerged from jail. Now he's known throughout the country. And in every black community, in every prison in America, the talk is about the Muslims, the Nation of Islam, the black Muslims. The white man is the devil. See, and this becomes a threat to the white man, and he has to counter it from somewhere, so he wants to work inside. And he's looking now, how can he separate the chief spokesman of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who is Malcolm X, from his leader. So he begins to work on that. And how the white man sees it is that I must get Malcolm away from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and perhaps in that I can destroy both. Now our time is far spent. I'm about 10 minutes over. So what I'm going to have to do, I'm going to just make the next point, put a pin in this, and I'll ask Brother Farrakhan one week that he's not able to come over or he's out of town if I can continue it, okay? So I want to tell you that because I have a time schedule here. Let me take it to the next point. They're making a movie now, and they've asked Richard Pryor to star as Malcolm. And the movie, listen, the reason for this, you have to ask yourself, I want you to look at this, and I know many of you sitting in this audience, you love Malcolm, and that's beautiful that you love Malcolm. And we love Malcolm for the 12 years of service that he gave to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because in those 12 years when his heart was clear and right, he was a great help in the Nation of Islam. But Malcolm said some words to Brother Farrakhan. He said on their last conversation, because Brother Farrakhan also loved Malcolm. And as he told you in one of his lectures, that he didn't think that he could take another step without it. He didn't know how he would survive as a Muslim minister if Malcolm wasn't there. Malcolm was a great corrector. If you said something wrong, he'd get you right there on the spot. If you ate during the day and you know you're supposed to eat one meal a day and he find a crumb in the corner of your mouth, he said, brother, wipe that crumb out of the corner of your mouth that you got right there. You know you're supposed to be eating one meal a day. He was a very disciplined individual, and he was like a father figure almost to Brother Farrakhan, because whenever he made a mistake, he was right there. And he didn't spare the rod at all. He cut you down wherever he found you. And so therefore, people who don't understand what took place in those years, the white man has made Malcolm appear that he is independent of anything of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They write books on Malcolm and barely mention the name of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So, I mean, I want to mention this because today many schools are closed. Many people are celebrating and honoring Malcolm, and that's good that you would honor another black man, and we would never take that away from you, but do not deny the tree that produced Malcolm himself. Don't say that Malcolm was a giant and forget that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad ever existed, or that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had nothing to do with the brilliance of Malcolm. That's madness. But that's the trap that you fall into with the devil. Let me make this point. There have been many, and I'm saying this now because you'll live to witness this if you stay around. Many men have tried to produce the life of Malcolm on the screen. Arnold Pearl started it. And while Arnold Pearl was in the midst of it and being financed, he had a heart attack and dropped dead. Marvin Wirth started it as a picture, and it ended up being a documentary that you saw of Malcolm X. He couldn't pull the pieces together. Louis Lomax got involved in it, and he was going to help him because Louis Lomax was tight with Malcolm, and he's the one that wrote the Negro Revolt and When the Word is Given, and put Malcolm on the front pointing with one hand. You may remember the book. Louis Lomax gets involved in it, and Louis Lomax crashes his car and kills himself in an accident in New Jersey. Then they get James Baldwin. The book name is One Day I Was Lonely. Is that the name of it? He wrote the screenplay. I read it when we were overseas because they asked Brother Farrakhan to play Malcolm. And this is later in the script, and I want to do this part tonight because the day is Malcolm's birthday, and I won't have time to finish the whole history in the order of it, but we'll pick it up at another time. But I want to end on this. James Baldwin got into a conflict with Columbia, and Columbia wanted to sue him. I read the script. It was an excellent script. I mean, even though there's a lot of filth in it, but that's commercial in Hollywood. They can't make a picture now unless they got something filthy and low down in it. So in the picture, and they start the picture off, they're going to start Malcolm off with some white woman. Because, you know, history says that Malcolm was a pimp and he used to sell white women, so why not throw him on into a groove with a white woman for openers, you understand? So James Baldwin got involved in it, and when we were overseas, when Brother Farrakhan decided, after the nation had fallen and they began to slander his name and say all kind of madness and everything he did was criticized, he said, I just won't teach no more. And when he started to back up, he had to take care of his family. He was going to go back into show business. And when he was in Hollywood, a group of people got together and said, well, why don't you play Malcolm? And when the idea came up, they gave him James Baldwin's script to read, which was the best one written. And he was going to be, we were going overseas at that time, getting finance, and he was going to make the picture. But the minister said that I would only make the picture if the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is in it. All others that were going to write the script were going to write the messenger out. Believe it. Now, how could you write the life of Malcolm X and exclude the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? That's pure madness. How could you do it? Where would you do it from? What base would you have to do it? You'd have to fabricate, you'd have to lie, because you couldn't do Malcolm X without doing the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because without the messenger there would be no Malcolm X. All praise is due to Allah. Look, so right now, I'm going to conclude this, and we'll have to, I'm sorry, we have to stop here. Remember, we're at 1960, okay? In order, they see Brother Farrakhan today. And as I said to a group of nationalists, the nationalist community last night, that, you know, when there's a longing, God produces someone to answer that longing. Right now, there's a longing in black America. They write about it every week. They say, where is black leadership at today? Black leaders or so-called leaders saying, we don't have the kind of dynamic leadership that Martin Luther King offered us. Martin Luther King didn't really offer leadership. He offered a point of rallying for black America because of his charisma and his ability to speak into the heart of the suffering of our people. And he painted some pictures that were really abstract, but he painted a picture and gave hope to many millions of black people. So they're saying that the American scene lacks a black spokesman who speaks into the hearts of black people, who represents a rallying point, who will give hope to black America. Now they're saying that, but all over the country they know that it's Louis Farrakhan today. And they know that Louis Farrakhan is holding up the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They have endeared Malcolm X to the black community of America by making him the patron saint of the black struggle. And so now, in order to have something out there that would kind of loosen the people's grip as they move to gravitate around Brother Farrakhan, as he moves on the country, rebuilding the nation, they want to shoot Malcolm back in the atmosphere in such a way that Malcolm will be brought back to the minds of a group of people who were barely born when Malcolm was on the scene that don't know him. And in that, they would try to drop the seed to turn them off to what Brother Farrakhan is saying in behalf of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Because if you look at the screen, or if you read the book, you identified with the whole first part of the book, and you know I read the book. And I know that the book kept me gripped in it as long as Malcolm was describing his early life and his work for the Nation of Islam. But soon as that was over, you really couldn't identify what he was saying in the book at all. Go back and read it again and you'll see what I'm saying. Meaning that if I am a good producer and I can put it on the screen, you will identify with jail, with ghetto life, with the parties and the dance and the reap and the liquor and the wine and knocking niggas in the head. See, that's your lifestyle. You can identify with it, and you'd come up with Malcolm. You'd see him when he's going to jail because you've been there also. You'd see him in jail wrestling and fighting and trying to hold on to his manhood in jail and going through those gymnastics. You identify with all of that. And even becoming a Muslim, when he becomes awakened and his conscious level is heightened by the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you would even identify with that. And then in that identity, you would fall in love with the man, and then the devil would turn around and show you how the Muslim with Elijah Muhammad at the root snuffed him out over something that he had found out about the personal life of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And then when you hear Brother Farrakhan, your mind is twisted. You love what he's saying, but you're thinking about Malcolm all the time. And so he's the brother quiet because he knew he was a man that took something that didn't belong to him. And he knew the heir apparent and the rightful heir was sitting right there, so he had to block him out. And then after he tried to push him in the background, I want to deal with this. And it's good that you know and understand this, so that when you see Brother Farrakhan teaching and coming forth to bring you the message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you got to know what that brother has been through just to stand up here and preach the messenger today. But they wanted to totally block him out. And so they wanted to put him in a corner because Minister Farrakhan was a known quantity, Wallace Muhammad was unknown. Ain't nobody know him. Who was he? And then Brother Farrakhan had the pleasing words, that soothed the heart and made you to understand the clear message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And Wallace's message was so confused, distorted, and twisted that your brain ended up like a pretzel after 2 sessions with him. And so therefore, if you could hear Brother Farrakhan compared to him, then quite naturally you would say, well, let me hear Brother Farrakhan. So the only way that he could do it is he had to keep Brother Farrakhan quiet. So in our next thing, as we go from 1960, the Malcolm, the fall of Malcolm from the nation, what happened with the nation during that period of time? What did Malcolm do? There were 3 things that he violated that caused him to lose his life. How did he get into that, and how did the devils use it? The writing of the book, 1967 to 1970, when there was a mass campaign to describe us as black capitalists because of the wealth that the nation was attracting during a time that all of the young brothers on the campus was talking about socialism. 1970 to 75, the age of popularity for the Nation of Islam throughout the country and the growing strength of the nation. 1975, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad leaves us. Wallace Muhammad comes in. 75 to 77, those 30 months with Brother Farrakhan pushed totally in the background. The Nation of Islam, all of us giving ourselves over, 90% of us giving ourselves over to Wallace, and then he abuses and messes over the entire nation and the work of the messenger. September 77, Brother Farrakhan stands up. 1977 to 1980, Brother Farrakhan working in the country to rebuild the nation. And then May of 1980, Brother Farrakhan goes to New York. 16,000 people come out. We could only get in between 12 and 13,000. Other 4 stayed outside. A testimony that the black America missed the voice of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and they were behind Brother Farrakhan to stand up and rebuild his work. So at our next lecture, we'll cover that part, okay? We got to have a few brief announcements, then we'll have a short prayer, and the meeting will be dismissed. First of all, the latest edition of The Final Call is out. And brothers, it's a dynamite edition. Brother Farrakhan has an article in here that you must read. Take it and nurse the article. Go over it. Because the article, not only to those who function in official capacity, but on every level, that article will help each and every one of us. And believe me, he labored over this article. This wasn't an article that he sat down and he wrote it. He labored over the words. He labored over what to say and how to put it in order to strengthen every one of us for the great responsibility that lies out in front of us. So make sure you get the latest edition of The Final Call. It's on sale. And as I said when I opened up, if you have a brother or sister, and most of you know some former follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and not that I'm saying go stand around their grave and try to re-resurrect them. They may reach out of the grave and drag you back if you're not careful. Listen, but you may have a brother or sister who's in another part of the country and you know that they cannot get a final call. Make sure that you buy an extra copy or 2 and take a minute and just roll it up. Like this here, put a piece of paper around it, Scotch tape it, write their name and address on it, put a little change on it, drop it in the box, and it'll be one of the best things you've ever sent them, okay? You know how you used to struggle to send that white man's Christmas cards every year? You running around totally out of your mind buying Christmas cards, running $1 a piece. Well, take and send them a final call, because in this paper, there's some life for them, okay? So the paper's on sale on your way out. Also, we have books. The Messenger's books are on sale. The book on the hog that I mentioned Sunday, $1. It's on sale on your way out. You can pick up a rendering of our new National Center that we're working on for here in Chicago. And if you want to get information on it and a pledge card, you can pick that up on your way out. Also, there's a tape list of all of the tapes available by Brother Farrakhan. Also, tapes by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that you need to hear some of them. They're also available. So if you want to order tapes or pick up some tapes, you can stop in the back. And any tapes that you want brought to the meeting next week, you can leave it with Brother Ishmael Muhammad, and he will make sure that those tapes come out. If there's tapes on the list and you may think it take too long in the mail, you want to pick them up next week, order them this week. Brother Ishmael will bring them out. You can pick up the tapes right here next week. We meet here every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. When you come out, please bring someone with you. On Sunday, we meet at Christ United Methodist Church, Reverend Dr. Porter, 64th and Sangamon. 6401 Sangamon. Maybe I can get Brother William J. to write that up here the next time. Oh yes, thank you, it is. Next Sunday at the United Methodist Church at 6401 South Sangamon at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Brother Farrakhan will be there this Sunday, be the will of Allah. Make sure you come out and bring someone with you. Also, we have the broadcast every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And we got a few calls last week from brothers around the city who they don't keep up with us, showing you how you have to get information out. And they were listening to Brother Farrakhan on another time, and they thought we were off the air. So people let you know, make sure you spread the word. You have to be your PR man, your public relations person, and let them know that Brother Farrakhan is still on the radio. He comes on WBEE 1570 on your AM dial.